Magnusakis. Benelli. Sutherland. Hines. Kulisek. Duke.
Here.
Menuda. Benton. One absent.
I just forgot myself. Mike, one for me. Just want to remind everybody to silence your cell phones, and as well as also, please make sure you do speak directly into the microphone, otherwise it won't get caught on tape, for the record. Okay, first up, Eric Denega, Commissioner, Department of Public Works, and Robert Gray, Commissioner of Public Works. Request the revenue shortfall in capital project number 834 for transfer stations, various vehicles to be covered by capital reserves so the project can be closed. Can I get a motion and a second for discussion, please?
Second.
Again, this did pass physical services yesterday. Mr. Gray?
Yes, good afternoon. Just to reiterate, this is an amount of money that would, however, that paperwork was not processed in time before. They have a rule that equipment can't be more than 10 years old to be reimbursed for. So by the time they got to process the paperwork, the 10 years had passed, so they turned it down. So that's the amount of money to close out the capital project. However, we're writing a letter to DEC, going through the circumstances and asking them basically to reimburse us the money, being that it was spent in good faith. Paperwork was submitted in good faith, and it just didn't hit the right desk at DEC in time.
Okay.
I don't know.
Monies were for a vehicle from like 2008.
Right, correct. The vehicles were two 2006 Mack roll-off trucks, which are still in service, by the way. So the paperwork, I had to retrace this. This happened quite some time ago. I had to retrace it, and we have date stamps that materials were submitted prior to the 10 years expiring. So I think on the strength of that, I think it deserves a letter requesting another look at it.
Okay, yes, because
But
like I mentioned.
the odds of that,
Yeah, because like I mentioned yesterday, every year
yeah.
we do certain things from the state that are available by grants. And you have to file the paperwork and get it in the process. And then the state regularly takes 5, 6, 7, 8, who knows how many years, to the money every year, all the time.
Yeah.
So.
It's the game we have to play to get the reimbursement, so.
Right, so this is part of the game that, again, we filed timely, the state sits on it, on the wrong desk, like you said, and now we have to do extra work.
If we can close out the account, and if we get the money back, we'll put it back in.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions from committee members? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Next up, number 2, Louise Vandermark, Commissioner of Elections, and I know Courtney, I believe, is out of town, so we only have Louise. This is a request supplemental appropriation and modification to the 2021 capital plan to purchase 100 machines over a 5-year period, which is 31 machines at $338,285 a year. 31 new voting machines were received in 2019, and the delivery of the 2020 was postponed to this year. This is a request to modify the existing plan to receive 93 more machines instead of just receiving 31 for the calendar years 2021, 2022, and 2023, for a total amount of 155, with an amount for bonding of $1,014,855. Motion and a second, please, for discussion. Kevin?
Second.
Katie? And Mike? Louise?
Aye. We are requesting that we be able to purchase the machines all at once because it'll help us with training, and our machines are starting to go. The ones that we have now, we're starting to see problems on not reading ballots when they go in one way and people having to flip them. So, I mean, they're reading them, and there's not a problem with that, but it is slowing down the process. One of the main things is training. It's very difficult to train machine operators on 3 different types of machines. It really is, because you have to figure out who's working where, which isn't the problem, but we always have a problem where people are dropping out and we're trying to get somebody from another area to come to that area, to do a fill-in for us. And if they're not trained on the new machines, it really is very difficult. It slows things down. So that's why we're requesting that we're able to purchase all the machines. So every polling site has the same machine, and all our inspectors are trained on the same machines. We received, within the last 2 weeks, 31 more machines. So our plan is to start rolling out per town. We have 5 towns selected, and we're going to concentrate on them. But for next year, we know we could start training on the machines starting in March and then have a retraining as we get closer to Election Day. Because people don't do it every day. We want to get them really comfortable with our new machines, which really are much easier and much quicker for reading ballots. So that'll cut down on the lines at the polling sites.
Thank you. Mr. Anagnostakis.
Yes. No, they were training machines, and those are the machines that we used for early voting. Well, we used them during early voting, but not on Election Day. Okay. Yes, and the general election season last year.
Sorry about that. Is that a little better?
They were used at all early voting sites.
Okay, this year. And then last year during the general
All
election?
early voting sites.
That's all. No problems reported with them? Okay. Eventually, you want these to replace every machine that we have currently in place?
Yes,
How long have these machines been in place that we're replacing?
over 10 years, and
First, I should have said, let me give you and your department kudos. Having gone through the primary season this year, everybody was very professional, very helpful, and I think people underestimate the importance of your department. Without elections, without everything you guys do, we wouldn't have everything else. So thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing no hands, all in favor as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next up, number 3, Lawrence Ledoux and Donna Strecker. A is request approval and appropriation of funds for proposed 2021 capital expenditure for the water sewer treatment plant in the amount of $250,000. Motion in a second, please. Jimmy Kay, Mr. Menuda. Lawrence?
Good afternoon, thank you. Yes, we have had money in our capital project for the sewer plant. Over the last 3 years, we've spent $400,000 on repairs for this sewer plant. We have spent all the money in our capital project for sewer plant repairs, so we're seeking additional funds to ensure that it's kept up to permit.
We've all known we've had problems with the plant, equipment, everything, so this is very much needed. Questions from committee members? Ms. Benelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question is actually for all three resolutions. Going forward, we were cautioned as far as where we are with the balance of that and utilizing appropriated surplus. And this may not be necessarily a question for you, Mr. Ledoux, but maybe for Deb. Is this something that should go through at this point, and we start taking a careful look going into next year? For the remainder of this year, it's okay to use the appropriated surplus. Gary, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were there as well. Thank you, Lawrence, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Just a clarification, we're going through A, B, and C separately? We're going through A, B, and C separately? Yes. Okay. I'm good with number 1A.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Kulisek.
Is there a plan to replace the whole plant?
Well, if you jump to number C, we are planning on doing a study on pretty much the majority of our major components of Valley View. The sewer plant would be one of them. So I've been at the facility for 8 or 9 years now. We haven't done a 5-year study. We haven't done a 5-year plan. I know it's been asked of us at previous, I believe at this meeting and other meetings when it comes to capital projects. So our plan is to do a study to see where we need to study, focus our energies on in the near future.
Well, I don't need a study. You need to replace the whole plant. That's bottom line. Back when we were nickel and diming, we need $50,000 for a trickling arm and things like that many years ago.
Right.
We all knew that it was coming.
Right.
I think that it should be looked at very seriously, because not for the expansion of the property, but just for what's existing there now is paramount that things get done. So, I mean, a study, whatever you want to call it, I think if everybody goes out there and looks at the operation of the plant, the study is done. They know it needs to be replaced. So really should look into RFPs right now, some design process or something, before it gets too far gone. So.
That's exactly what I meant, Mr. Kulisek. We've known this is going to be necessary for years, like you said, with trickling arms and Band-Aids. But again, I probably...
Absolutely. I mean,
Yep.
I went out there and walked the system. You see the discharge going out into the wetlands and whatever, and it's just, it's beyond repair right now, I think, so. From a guy who's built a couple of them, so.
Okay, yeah, that's beyond my scope, so I won't comment on it.
I think we all agree with you, but obviously we have to do it the proper way. So, Mr. Paduk?
But that was 5 years ago.
I understand.
7 years ago, so.
I'm not disagreeing with you in the least.
You can't kick the can down the road anymore.
I agree with Mr. Kulisek. However, I would just want to mention, we've been fighting a master plan for this place too, for Valley View. And the fact is, if we have a master plan and we redo our sewer plant to the existing buildings, then it better be built to the fact that we can add on another 250,000 gallons or whatever is required. In my opinion, I think our master plan, which we've talked about for the past 2 years, also should be in place before we decide how we replace that sewer plant. Because if we're going to subdivide it and have 4 different sections for different buildings to be built, and we know what's going to be there, whether it's a medical building or a recreation building, whatever, that we'd know what the requirements would be so that when we do our design for this plant, that it's all inclusive. I mean, spending $2 million now to fix a plant, to get it back that's still old without, like Mr. Kulisek said, redoing the whole plant, I don't know. I don't agree with that. I think we should finish our master plan, do a couple of fix-up that have to keep the plant running, and then devise our idea for matching our master plan for that, for Valley View in general, all the property. That's what we've talked about I've been here 24 years now, and I know we've talked about it multiple years in regards of what needs to be done. I think it's time to act too. I agree with Mr. Kulisek, but I think we need to do it in a more focused way of finishing our master plan for that, and then putting the plant, doing what we need to do with the plant as we see it developing. That's my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Paduk. Mr. Menuda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with my contemporaries here with regard to the master plan, and also that I'm not an expert in sewer treatment plants, but I will take the advice of Mr. Kulisek that it needs to be replaced entirely. I don't know, or I don't see a master plan on the agenda for this project. Has a master plan been resolved to be completed for this area, or no?
Ms. Benelli?
Not necessarily to answer, but I had the opportunity to attend the Valley View Advisory Committee that was held last Tuesday. Was held last Tuesday, and they are working towards looking at the parcel that encompasses that whole area there where Valley View is, and developing what I would call a master plan. It may not be all of the particulars, but Mr. Paduk actually sits on that committee, and you actually mentioned it at that committee. So I would have to say that they may not be working as quickly, but I think they're on top of it, and they're moving forward faster now because they really didn't meet during the pandemic. And possibly keeping this in mind to coordinate, and Mr. Paduk does sit on that committee, and he did mention it. So I would say we're moving ahead, but with baby steps. So I don't know if that totally answers your question, Joe.
It kind of does and doesn't. If we're not actually formalizing a master plan on the project, in my mind, we don't have a way forward. If that is happening through Mr. Paduk and the committee, that's great, but obviously we need design professionals on board to be able to facilitate such a master plan in of itself. My worry, I agree that a master plan should be done. I always believe a master plan should be done. However, if we already have a plant that's failed, obviously you say that it's leaking, that's an immediate item that needs to be repaired. Now, can that be repaired, or do we do a new plant? Is this $250,000 for a new plant or just repairs?
How could this be for a new plant?
I don't know how big the plant is over there. I'm not familiar with that. So this is for repairs, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So that's the answer to that. So at this point, we need to repair it. If it's leaking, we're, pending facing fines for a leaking plant. That's a DEC Speedies type of situation. So moving forward to get the immediate thing done, I believe is appropriate because that's eminent and important. Moving forward, we should be doing a master plan and then incorporating into whatever needs to be done for that. However, we have no idea what is going to happen with the property. Now, if down the road we look at this and say, okay, X amount of gallons per day, and we want to build out what's our max we could possibly build out on this property, and then gauge for that, we can certainly do that. I'm just trying not to get A, B, and C confused because right now it is confused in my mind. So I'll just ask the question now for C. Is C part of this Part A? In other words,
No.
It's
No, we're asking, we don't have any funds available should something else in the sewer plant need to be fixed right now. So we're asking, this money is primarily for repairs in the short term, should we need to make a repair to the sewer plant tomorrow.
Thank you. So I'm in full support of having the plant repaired for Part A. I will have a question when it comes to C at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Menuda. Mr. Paduk, did you
Yeah, no,
want to speak again?
I would agree. I just, in the back of my mind, if you know what you're going to put there, then we know how to design a sewer treatment plant. It's not hard to figure out. We know what acreage we have. We know if we need to subdivide it into 4 lots. We want healthcare on this lot. We want a recreation facility on this lot. And we want a little store on this lot, or whatever it is. Then we could engineer what the amount of gallons we would need to be. Then we could do a full replacement of the plant, with that in mind. We're not there yet, so. I can agree to get the repairs that are necessary done right now, but we need to work a little faster on getting our master plan and what is going to be proposed there, so we know what to do. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Kulisek?
Is DPW involved in the process here?
No.
And why wouldn't they be involved in the process with, we operate another plant down in Harriman, which is, we have a lot of people who are very experienced in this, on one side of the county, and we don't involve them in something that's failing at this side of the county.
I know they've come over to the plant previously, and they've seen the plan. I know there was a tour of the plant. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago now, with them and some other people. I think they were talking about doing some kind of a countywide assessment, but, we're kind of.
And do we know the gallons per day that's treated there?
I don't have that information with me.
You do know that, though? Is there a reading somewhere? Is there?
Yeah, I can get it to you guys, sure.
Okay. I think maybe DPW should sit with somebody, physical services or the county executive side of the house, and then really sit down and get some direction, maybe help you out with some process of looking what actually needs to be done and how it needs to be done and when it can be done. Prioritize things rather than all the expertise sit in Harriman while you have a problem that's failing out here.
Right.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kulisek. I think we're all in agreement of everything that's been discussed at this time. Any questions any other questions on A? Mr. Denega, you want to come forward? And also, I should have mentioned that Legislator Cheney is also in attendance. Thank you.
I just wanted to address that part about the DPW because the majority of the staff that we have on is paid for by Orange County Sewer District 1. That's a special task district. It's not open for the general taxation of Orange County residents, for the employees that we have there in general. We did at one point meet with Lawrence and his team to discuss hiring a consultant for some of the stuff that they're going to be working on because from a resource constraint as well as an expertise factor, that a lot of things going on there, we would recommend having a consultant look at to make sure that you have the right people involved. That's all.
Thank you, Eric. Any additional questions on A? Hearing none, all in favor as presented? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. B, request approval and appropriation of funds for a proposed 2021 capital expenditure to continue upgrading patient care mechanical lifters. $70,000 is the amount from appropriated surplus. Mr. Paduk and Mr. Hines.
So we do this every year. We replace lifters. We have 47 lifters that we utilize in total at the facility. Currently, we have 16 lifts that are 7 years old, and 7 years is the lifespan of a lift.
So this is replacing 14?
I don't know if this will be replacing all 16 of it. It'll be replacing a portion of these lifts that are the oldest, and we'll determine which ones need to go and which ones can still be used that are still safe. The average lifespan is 7 years. We may get a year or two more out of some of them as long as they're still safe to use.
Okay, thank you. Questions from committee members? Again, we should have all heard this many times before, as this is an annual program, like Lawrence said. Hearing no questions, all in favor as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. C, request approval and appropriation of funds for proposed 2021 capital expenditures for engineering services. Engineering to perform a facility-wide condition assessment relative to buildings, grounds, mechanical, structural, roofing, electrical systems, plumbing, and code compliance. The amount is $172,500, again, from appropriated surplus. Motion in a second, please. Mr. Kulisek, second. I'll second it. Lawrence?
So we would like to Eric's point, we'd like to have a consultant or engineering service come through, do an assessment of some of the major components of our facility, and they can prioritize for us or give us a report on where we stand, and then from there, we can prioritize what needs to be fixed going forward in the future.
How long do you anticipate this to take?
I'm not sure. I mean, it'll have to go out to bid. We can move it up to the agenda on our to-do list, certainly.
Questions from committee members? Mr. Menuda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm curious as to how the number of $172,500 was derived.
We got a quote from GPI for engineering services. I don't know if that was attached in your paperwork.
It is.
Thank you. Typically, we're seeing building condition assessment reports. If we take a look at the State Education Department, those normally range between 16 cents and 27 cents a square foot on the high side. So if I take this number, 172,500 divided by the high side, we're looking at 638,888 square feet of building. So I'm curious as to how many buildings and how much square footage there is.
I don't have that information with me, but we do have 3 primary buildings that would be assessed here. The Perry building, the Kauser building, the Simon building, and the Glenmere building.
Okay, my statement still stands, though, with the state published rates of between 16 to 27 cents a square foot. This number should be coming in within that range. And normally, these things take probably anywhere from 2 to 4 months to complete. So with that said, I would like some more information with regard to square footage and cost. Now, I'm happy to move this forward to get the ball rolling, but I don't think 172,500 should be the benchmark to be used for this based on only having a quote and not knowing how much square footage we have.
Again, we needed a quote for a basis point. We did add a 15% contingency onto this number, and it'll still have to go out to bid. This doesn't mean it'll be the final cost.
Mr. Menuda, what standard is that?
New York State Education Department for building condition surveys, which is where I had based this originally request several years ago, published on their website. They reimbursed based on cost per square foot. And so the maximum is usually about 27 cents a square foot. But usually we'll see engineering architectural firms come in anywhere about 16 cents a square foot because what they're doing is they're making the assessment and hoping that they're coming in with the right numbers and they already get their foot in the door for that number. So those are the types of things that we typically see through State Education Department. My anticipation is that we would do the same type of survey as they would there for these buildings.
Is that for government work as well, that number?
That is State Education Department. So any school district within our state,
Okay,
yes.
gotcha.
Lawrence, our attorney just pointed out to me, Betsy, that, let's see, the page 2, the subject under the quote is for ultraviolet disinfection.
You might have the wrong handout then. I have a different handout if you want to take a look at this.
It says for the engineering.
Oh, this is, the subject is ultraviolet disinfection, but he asked this question on top of this other question that was previously, so this is a continuation of an email. It's not the original email. He was talking to GPI regarding ultraviolet disinfection. The email chain kept going, and then he asked the question about the engineering services develop a 6-year plan. It's pretty clear in the subject matter of the email.
Would it be possible to get some of the criteria as an addendum to this? I mean, we move this forward today, but you send us an addendum through Gene as to what, how his figure was determined?
I'll see if I can get additional information on the quote, absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Menuda?
I do appreciate that. Just for the record, I would not be okay with a number that is higher than what the state numbers are normal.
Yeah, if you could get us the information on what
I will.
Criteria he established to get this number, as well as, the square footages of the buildings.
Absolutely.
See how it correlates with what Mr. Menuda is questioning. Mr. Paduk?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in regards to the amount of A, B, and C, it's $492,500, and it's coming from your undesignated balance? I mean, from your unrestricted balance at Valley View. Can you tell me what the remaining balance is? Do you know what it would be?
Our balance as of right now is approximately 50 million.
50 million? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hines?
Thank you. I see that you had mentioned earlier this doesn't include the sewer. Would it be smart to add the sewer to this right now? I would think that if someone can analyze plumbing and code compliance, they probably would have an expert in sewer as well. So if we bump this up and get the sewer analyzed at the same time, it might move us forward with the concerns we had in A earlier.
I'll find out if the sewer is included in this number or not.
Well, if it's not, maybe it should be, even if that number goes up. I mean, the engineering quote you got was 150, so we're dealing with a fake number anyway until the bids come back. So I wouldn't mind if it went higher and just take care of that all right now.
Right.
It seems like a major concern for the facility and for the wishes of the future of that property. So now seems like the best time to do it. If you're bringing all these engineers on the site, maybe they could just add another expert to their team and get it done.
We'll do.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And again, it does say perform a facility-wide condition assessment, so nothing should be left off. Mr. Menuda?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up on that, with respect to that, there should be a qualification with respect to not just saying that we're evaluating X, Y, and Z, but exactly what we're evaluating. For example, New York State SED provides a checklist of items to be evaluated. I would expect that we would possibly utilize something of that nature so that we have equal bids across the board and that we know what we're getting back, not just a number, and they say we're analyzing X, Y, and Z. So
Okay.
they're apples to each bidder. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Menuda. Any other questions from committee members? Mr. Cheney, any questions? Okay. Okay, hearing no other questions, all in favor as presented? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you, Donna. Next up, we have Carrie, substituting for, pinch hitting for Karen. Welcome. This is discussion about the sales tax update.
This is on? It's on. Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. As you all have received our sales tax spreadsheet through July, I just have to highlight some of the data. So for July, for the county portion of sales tax, we are currently 32.10% over budget, or approximately $3.7 million. Year-to-date, we are 25.46 over budget, approximately $22.1 million over budget. In August, we will receive 2 payments, the first being August 5th and the second August 12th. Along with budget, we're going to continue to closely monitor our sales tax revenue.
And also on the, you have a graph on the second page. Could I ask, would it be possible for you to put 19 on this graph as well? Because that's, I would consider that 19 to be like a normal year.
Sure.
Because, we seem to be normalizing, but I think it would be helpful to see what 19
Sure, we can add
19
that,
was.
and then we'll send it over, and going forward, we'll add it.
Excellent, thank you. Questions from committee members? Obviously, we had quite a spike there, which is welcomed after what we had to deal with.
Exactly.
Any questions? Mr. Kulisek?
Not a question, but just comment maybe.
Sure.
Well, there's a question there. In July, we're only up to the 13th. Will we receive another payment in July or no? That'll be
No, we're
August
done
5th.
for July.
Okay.
August 5th is our next payment.
And we're $22 million over budget right now. What are we budgeting?
22.1, yep,
Okay, that's a good thing.
it is.
That's a very good thing. And it was just cautious budgeting by us last year. Absolutely.
Very good.
Mr. Paduk?
Comment.
Never mind, I thought you wanted to actually say
Oh,
something.
yeah, no, I'm fine.
Okay.
He answered the question.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, Kerry, what do you attribute that large spike to? And what were the reasons for that? I mean, what?
Sure, well, obviously, there's a lag, but I believe, in my personal opinion, as we began to open up, people have stimulus checks that they were receiving. People were locked up for, 18 months, and now they had some additional money that they didn't have before, and I believe that they started spending it. I mean, as you can drive around the county, tourism is booming, places are booming. We still haven't yet received most of the revenue yet from Legoland as that, and so hopefully those numbers will continue to rise. But I truly believe that it's, stimulus money, child tax credit, advance payments that people weren't used to. But that's where I think that attributes to.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next up, Deb. Deb Slazinski, Budget Director.
Good to see everybody in person. Okay. So first, I just want to let you know that we've been talking about our new Hyperion software. Hasn't come along as good as we've hoped. So we are going to be doing the 2022 budget in our current PSB module. We've been able to validate some of the data in Hyperion, but we haven't been able to go through a full cycle yet. So I don't feel confident that the numbers will all transfer over as they should, so we're going to go with that. I am working on the report, the 3-year average report for all the accounts. I am going to try and get that out of the Hyperion. It's just taken me a little bit more time than I had anticipated. Our budget analysts are reviewing and preparing for the county executive budget hearings. They begin on Wednesday, August 4th, and continue through Thursday, August 12th. As I had suspected, we did get the full 2% on the tax cap growth factor. And I'm still evaluating our receipts on sales tax, hotel tax, casino money to determine a good number for the 2022 budget. As Carrie mentioned, the sales tax is up, but I want to follow that trend through and use a conservative number in the 2022 budget. I don't want to go overboard on anything. We made some very tough decisions for the 2021 budget, such as lowering our use of fund balance by over $6 million and implementing that 80% austerity on personal services and benefits. So I think by doing that this year, it's going to help us for the 2022 budget. Again, cautiously optimistic here, so we'll see how the numbers go. And just lastly, as of July 16th, we have 327 full and 23 part-time vacant positions for a total of 350 positions with a year-to-date savings of $13.9 million. We have authorized many hiring requests, but the process does take some time in order to see a decrease in that number.
Questions from committee members? Mr. Paduk?
Yeah, thank you, Deb, for all your help during this. I think you're doing a great job. I would just ask, has any department asked for higher than that 20% of personnel that's allowed to be filled?
No, and everybody is on track to meet their austerity for this year. And we're very cautious with looking at the hiring requests and such. Last month, we did authorize quite a few for the sheriff's office or the corrections office and for DSS, because we know that those positions, need to be filled. So,
Okay, so I just would have one more question then.
sure.
Since you're working on a 2022 budget, you didn't mention any austerity possibilities here again. Instead of 80%, maybe it drops to 50% or whatever?
It could. Some departments put in their own austerity. Okay, others take it completely out, and they let us determine what that number should be. So as we go through and as we see that gap number with the tax cap, the tax levy, we'll determine where it needs to go. So as we go through the budget hearings, we'll make cuts. We'll know that there's certain things that can be reduced. And as we do that, we'll figure out where that number has to come in at.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Kulisek.
With real estate sales through the roof, mortgage recording taxes have to be through the roof, I would
Yes, they
think.
are increased. I don't have the
And
exact
sales
numbers.
tax in June was more astronomical of an increase than
Yes.
July.
Yeah.
And what is the reason for the austerity, the 10 or 15% in each department in such times?
So we can only increase our tax levy so much. It has to be at a certain amount to maintain that 2%. So if there's not enough taxation and there's not enough other revenue to cover the expenses, we have to put in an austerity. Sales tax may cover it. Again, I've been very cautious, and I'm looking at the 2019 numbers specifically also, and I know we'll be able to go a couple of percent above that. But, if we do that and the Delta variant or something else happens and we get.
Property values have astronomically shot
And
up too.
that will play a factor in the tax rate itself, yes. And I haven't looked at that piece yet.
Yes, we're just coming out of this COVID issue, but with everything, economy's good, tourism's good, sales tax right
Yes.
now is through the roof. And we're still talking about cutting things or cautiously refilling things. DMV, they should be training people now because they have 10 windows and they only have 5 open at the most at any one time.
Yeah.
So,
And we did give them some vacancies also to fill.
and most of the complaints I hear are DMV related because they can't get in to get them. It was appointments for the longest time, and you stand there and, you wait in line with a number and you're there for hours. I was there for hours myself, just trying to register a car, for God's sake. Thank you.
You're welcome. I just think it's cautious optimism right at the moment. Mr. Paduk.
Thanks. One more question. Do we have a full accounting of our COVID-19 expenses and how much from our money that we're reimbursed, the 34 or 37 million, do we have an account from each department as to what their spending was during COVID that we can replenish?
I believe.
And if we
that-
do,
and-
could I have a copy of it?
And I don't know if we have a. We're still working on that. Yeah.
Is it specific?
Excuse me, you might need to come up to the microphone, even stand at the podium. I'm not sure that this is getting captured on video,
Red's good.
streaming.
You think green's good, but I guess red's good. So as I stated, we have added a tab in our Oracle program, which is our accounting software program for COVID-related expenses. And we are continually working with all the departments. Emergency services is really taking the most of it and doing the FEMA reimbursements. So as we do that, we can definitely share the reimbursements per department with their COVID expenses.
Could I just ask, by budget time, you think we'd have a full accounting of the monies that we received from the rescue plan or from the feds in regards to what our expenses were, and then where the rest of the money went or is going?
Sure, we can work together. together to do that.
And as far as the FEMA money, we have not gotten much yet.
Exactly.
Okay? It takes.
I mean, it takes years
It
to
takes
get
a
that.
long time to get the
I'm
FEMA.
talking about the 34 million that we did get, 34.7, I think it was exactly.
But we can't use that money to reimburse what we spent last year.
There's specific guidelines.
Yeah.
It's like a document.
It's a 150-page document, and there are specific guidelines. I don't know if we've shared it. I'll be happy to.
I'm a little surprised. I thought that's how it was explained to us. You were getting reimbursed for COVID expenses, but we can't use the money that they're reimbursing us?
We can't use it for what we've been spent in the past. I believe the date that we can start using it for is March 5th or something like that.
Of 2020?
Of 2021.
2021.
Yes.
Doesn't make sense, really.
There's huge restrictions. Literally, it's hundreds of pages
it is.
thick that you have to comply with. And I know Karen has been working with the county executive on a plan. But again, it's not just, you can't use it for tax stabilization or anything like that. It has to be really.
Honestly, they really want you to spend it.
I know that.
Yes,
So
that's really what they want.
So let me ask you that. So where are we spending it?
We still are formulating that plan with the county executive's office.
Okay.
I think we're going to meet later this week.
So we have it right now and it's in our undesignated fund balance? Or
It's in a
sitting
special, I
somewhere?
believe
It's in a special account, therefore we ensure that we properly, after Deb and Karen and the county exec's office, ensures that they are using it for what it's allowed to be used for. We'll basically reimburse ourselves from that separate account where the money is hanging out at this point.
So once the county executive's office formulates their plan, will we get a copy of it? And will we be able to approve it or not have anything to do with it? Because there's a concern there.
Well, I think the county executive's office will be in discussions with leadership of the legislature. My personal opinion is that the feds are sending all this money around the country because they want you to spend it in certain ways that they believe should be spent on.
That's
not necessarily what Orange County leadership believes the way the money should be spent.
No, that's true. However, the money is for Orange County at 34 million. So I want to see what our plan is and being part of that negotiations or what the ideas are. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of good ideas, but there could be a few maybe added to it that this legislature would like to see as well. So, I'll wait patiently for that.
I'm sure Mr. Paduk leadership will be included.
Thank you.
Mr. Kulisek.
Yes, other than the 2 yearly payments of the $30-some million each or whatever, some departments have been receiving other COVID monies, correct?
Correct, yeah.
DSS, I'm sure, got some. Health Department, I'm sure, got some.
Health Department.
There have been different grants given out to aging and different things.
That's above and
yes.
beyond.
That's above and beyond the FEMA
separate
and the
from this.
34 million, yes.
Okay. And I think we don't really need to wait for the county executive's office to come out with how to spend that money. If we want to get together and decide how to spend that money, we could put together a plan ourselves. So, since we appropriate the money anyway. So, as the Ways and Means Committee, we probably should think on that.
I'd like to get the county executive's opinion as well. I mean, this is, two branches of government here. Any other comments?
Just
Mr.
one
Paduk?
final comment, Deb. So with what Mr. Kulisek asked in regards to FEMA monies or whatever other monies we got in, will we have that all on one sheet so we can compare it? Or, I mean, they could be on separate sheets, I'm not saying that. But I mean, the health department got this much money from here, here, and here. And we're planning on using the county executive's plan to put this much money there as well. I mean, so we have a really good vision of what that money's being used for and what they've already received. So we can, actually decide if they need that much more or we could use it more efficiently somewhere else. I mean, I'd love to have that.
Yeah, no, we can probably get you something like that. But
Great.
Oftentimes when the departments come to their committee, they appropriate the money and they should be stating that it's COVID related or something like that. So just so you're aware that you do see it before you have to approve.
Right, but we're not part of the negotiations when the department heads are sitting with the county executive. And that's really where I'd like to be sitting myself, actually. Right? I mean, when the department heads go to the county executive for the budget, There's no legislator sitting in that room to hear what the department proposes. I've asked about that, and I guess, I don't know if we're allowed or not allowed, but that would be where you could hear what the departments were asking for and what they were denied, and what we might think would be best for the department as well. So when we have our shot at the budget, we can make our comments from hearing what was said in there, but I've never been allowed into one of those, so. But thank you.
That's why I said it's a separate branch of the government. Mr. Poor, did you want to make a comment? I see you sitting in the back.
Yeah, I think if you read the county charter and you read the administrative code, you'll find out that there's a process. And the process is that the executive recommended budget is developed by the executive's office in conjunction with the department heads and the finance people. So since we've been following that, at least I know since 1979, we're probably going to continue with that same process for the 2022 budget. As far as the federal money goes, we received the $35 million, which you accepted, and we have put into an account. We're trying to figure out how best to use that money to help the county. There is a lot of guidance, and it's even called tentative final, so there's more coming. I know the first batch was 151 pages. We assigned the ladies to read that because I wasn't going to read it. But and then we also have your auditors helping us give an interpretation. So I think at the end of the day, which for me is when the budget is delivered to you guys on October 1st, we'll have a very clearly outlined plan in terms of how we intend to put together the needs for 2022 and how best to use that federal money both this year and another $35 million we're hoping to get next year as part of the budget process. So we don't have to impact our taxpayers to any excessive degree, and at the same time provide the quality services that the county provides each year. As far as other monies that we receive from the feds because of the COVID, we have received monies in our social services department for housing assistance. We received more money from the Community Development Block Grant Program for a similar type activity. The planning department has received monies for transportation purposes, and aging has received money also. So there's a variety of streams of revenue that are coming into the county. Most of them, because they're from the federal government, are tied very specifically with 1,000 pounds of rules to how that money can be spent. And even the big one, which is the $35 million, we're still looking for clarity on how best to use that. So that's where we are. And as far as legislators coming into the executive budget preparation, I would refer you again to the charter and the administrative code. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poor. Any other further discussion? Mr. Kulisek?
That money we received this year, the 35 or 37 million, whatever it was, that could be supplemental appropriations for programs this year in this budget, right? It doesn't need to go into next year's budget. If that money's here and we have a plan or something, you want to use it to enhance the mental health association or something like that here in the county.
As long as it meets the
It
criteria.
meets the criteria in
Yes.
their manual.
We could, yes.
But that don't need to sit and wait until next year's budget to be spent.
It doesn't have to be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Hearing none, thank you, Carrie. We'll move on to the next, which is our deed sale parcels. Mr. Rusher, Eric? Motion and a second for discussion, please. Mr. Paduk, second. Ms. Benelli? Eric?
Good afternoon. Just before I start, I just want to say that these, the leftover deed sale parcels, the list is at an all-time low. It's less than 1/10 of 1% of the total county properties. So thank you for your help on that. And I guess I'll move along with the list now. So first parcel is Blooming Grove 2864. It's a 60 by 100 piece of vacant land in Mountain Lodge Park. Back taxes are $51.29, and we have a bid for $27.50, and I'm recommending we accept that bid. It's an unbuildable lot, not bid on by an adjoining owner, but I recommend we say yes on that one.
All right, questions on number one? Again, please remember, just raise your hand on each individual piece.
Okay, and 8127, and if you don't mind, I'll take contiguous lot 8128 along with it. They're bid on by the same bidder. These properties are, they're regular shaped properties, 125 by 100 and 230 by 170, but they're actually closer to being triangular, so they're pretty much half the site area that would normally be. On number 2, 8127, the back taxes are 972.54. We have a bid for 655. And on number 3, 8128, the back taxes are 1360.30, and we have a bid for 755. Adjoining property owners were sent out on both these properties. As you can see from your aerial, the portion, the property 9-2-16 is actually in the town of Chester. That's the town line that they back up to. These were also bid on by a property owner who was, or actually non-adjoining property owner. So on these, I recommend we accept both bids. No, these are small lots. There are actually no frontage on these lots.
Question, Mr. Paduk? Okay, any questions on these two parcels? Eric?
Number 5, Mount Hope 9-2-12. We went over this property last month. What happened was I had received information from the town and the village of their non-interest in the property a little late and had to change my recommendation to you. So this just, oh, I'm sorry. No, that's the, okay, number 4. Yeah, there we go. And so basically, this is just a formality, just making sure we have the resolution corrected for this month. And so this is, again, a recommendation of yes.
Okay, any questions on this long piece? Mr. Paduk?
I can't. Mount Hope.
All right, so that's number 4. Number 5?
Okay, again, Mount Hope, 9-2-12. This is a small vacant piece of property. It's about a little less than a half an acre, and residential vacant land. It's in a RA residential ag district, 1 acre minimum. We have back taxes of $31.50.30, and the bid was $2,000. I'm recommending we do accept this bid.
Eric, is this a paper street?
Yeah, this is kind of a, started out as a seasonal area. These are kind of like unimproved streets.
Okay. 6?
Number 6, 60-1-29, 2x489 Lakeside Drive. This one we tabled last month. It has a lake frontage on Beaver Dam Lake, and I had noticed that adjoining owner letters were never sent out on this property, so we tabled it for last month. We sent out the adjoining owner letters as well as giving the bidder, who is the same bidder here, an opportunity to either remove the bid, increase the bid, or leave the bid alone. They did increase it a little bit, and so I felt at this point we have it covered, that we did our due diligence, and I'm recommending we do accept a bid of $1,500, which is over the delinquent taxes of $1,398.32.
Okay, any questions? Mr. Kulisek?
Lake frontage of 2 foot
Yes.
on that property?
Yep. And almost 500 feet long, so got to walk that straight line.
That's amazing. All right, any other questions? Any last minute questions on any of the parcels? If not, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the commissioner's recommendations on all the pieces, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. A motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. It's good to be back in public.